And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. It's potluck time. This is the part of the show where we go around the table and share our favorite stories of the day. And we always start with the person wearing a shade of orange. So Heather, you get to go for, yeah, that is a bright orange. Not quite Denver Bronco orange, but
working the orange.
more Buccaneers old uniform. Anyway, tangents, go ahead.
My topic today is police departments across the United States are hiring more immigrants. And it raises a number of issues.
Legal or illegal?
Well, it depends. It depends on where you're talking about. So in Hawaii and Chicago, if you have a work permit, so that's all, you don't need to be a legal citizen, then you can be hired. Right now in Nashville, Tennessee, they're looking to change the law because non-citizens cannot be police officers. And they want to change the law to make it so that if you've been honorably discharged from the military, you can be a police officer. I don't think many people would object to that, although I've talked to some people who do.
Really?
Yes, but I don't have any objection to that. However, when you start talking about hiring as police officers who carry a gun and have the right to arrest, people who have work permits and that is all, I think it raises a number of issues, especially given at the beginning of this month, we know that 15 people were arrested who were here as part of President Obama's amnesty who had committed felonies. And so whether or not there's appropriate safeguards in place, there's also questions about the civil servant exam. Are they given any sort of allowance for that examination? Their pension? I think a lot of issues come up when we start allowing people who are not legal residents, legal Americans, to serve in this particular place. But I wonder especially what you guys think about it.
Adam?
I agree with Heather on this. I think that's a bad idea. I mean, there's enough people looking for work out there who are citizens and are qualified that you can look into their backgrounds and check it out. With undocumented illegal aliens, there's so many red flags that go up at once, I don't even know where you would start. But I just think this is a very bad idea.
The problem, the reason this is happening is precisely the opposite. They can't find enough people out there, and that's why they're doing it. Look, with respect to Nashville, anybody who complains about somebody who was honorably discharged because they were serving our country, defending us overseas, then I think they qualified to defend us here at home.
Yeah,
so that's a no-brainer.
ridiculous
I do see the problem, obviously. I do see the problem. But at the same time, while it's easier to check out somebody who's grown up here in the States, you have a potential problem with that too, with domestic terror. So I see the problem. I don't know if it's enough to overcome the need to have police officers.
Well, and I think that if it was just for the reasons that you stated, and I think you're right, police officers are underpaid, they're overworked,
And they can't find enough of them.
they face horrible things,
Yeah.
and they can't find enough of them. And if that were the only reason, then that might be a good enough reason, although I'm not sure. But the other reason that they've cited is to make the police officers more relatable to the communities that they're serving.
right.
And while I see that as an issue, I just don't think that's enough of a reason to overcome all the problems.
That's valid.
There's
I'll
enough
buy that.
minorities out there now that would get that job if it was offered to them and you gave them the
pay them a
training
little
for it.
more.
I think this is just completely bad.
All right. Adam, that'll be the last word as we transition to your first ever potluck. Welcome.
This has been on my mind a lot. As a criminal defense and civil rights attorney for over 25 years and with other attorneys here at the table so they could relate, you know, what we've been seeing going on so much now with the UVA case, with an emotionally disturbed man that had a screwdriver and was shot and died after 2 bullet wounds to his chest, and we saw Eric Gardner here in New York. There's such a difference now with how police brutality cases are taking place. And I discussed this with so many people, and they're still not sold on the fact that it's a good idea to have police wear body cams. And I just can't fathom this because there's no logical argument against it. Every moment that the police officer is out of a vehicle, what he does, how he encounters that person will be recorded. The video will speak for itself, as it did in many of these cases. It changes the whole complexion of these cases. It doesn't allow police officers to fudge or make things up. Same for witnesses. Cops are more protected, the citizens are more protected, and in the big picture, it dials everyone down. People will be a lot calmer when they know they're being recorded and everything they say or do is on a tape. But yet there's still people that oppose it, and I'm mystified why. Am I missing something?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I think that it will definitely, and people just behave better. And I don't mean the police. I mean everybody
Citizens,
behaves better when they know that there's a camera
Look
on.
how we're doing right now. We're
Right.
completely and totally behaved because we know we're being
Normally,
recorded.
we would be
On
acting
camera,
completely
yeah.
differently. Yeah, I don't know what the argument is against it. I know it's the cost, and you know, we're talking about the cost of not paying these police officers. officers and then to have an additional cost, I think that's a strong argument, but I don't know what other argument there could be against
The
having
cost,
them.
though, is offset, though, right, because of all the lawsuits you avoid as a
Absolutely.
result of saying, but we have this all on
But you
tape.
know-
Oh, maybe I don't want to sue the police department right about now. And the police actually are embracing it, most of
Right,
what I've seen
most of
anyway,
them are.
because they say, okay, you're going to
But
accuse
it's
us
not.
of stuff. We got the tape.
I support the idea clearly, but it's not the end all be all that some people make it out to be. Understand, they're going to wear it right here, right? You're not going to get the full picture of everything. You're going to be relying on other police officers whose cameras are shooting a situation, and they're going to turn around sometimes so it doesn't happen.
And there'll be
Also-
different views,
also-
different
Yeah.
clips. And remember,
Also-
Eric Gardner was completely on
That's
tape,
what I was going to say.
and no police
And it
officer
didn't
was
make any
indicted in
difference,
that
did it?
case.
That's right.
Yep.
That's what I was going to point out.
Well, it's like Obamacare. Maybe something is better than nothing in terms of footage, right? So, anyway, we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll have more potluck, including my own. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. I'm your host, Joe Conchin. If you're just joining us, we're in the middle of our potluck, where we share our favorite stories of the day, and I am up next. So, is the NCAA robbing black wealth? As you know, March Madness began in earnest last Thursday around noon. My bracket not looking very good right now, but I'm still in it because I was brave enough to go against Kentucky, and they will lose, or at least be challenged by West Virginia. Anyway, that's not what I wanted to talk about right now. What I wanted to talk about was the fact that every year we got to hear this debate about whether college basketball players, or football players for that matter, should be paid or not. And I've talked about it on the show here before, in case you missed it. I think there should be some sort of stipend. In other words, they're getting a scholarship, yes, and I get their education is being paid for. My wife was a college athlete, for instance, and I'm going to tell you, between school and between practice, she had no time to earn any kind of money to, I don't know, go to a movie, get a slice of pizza, maybe take the train home for if somebody's parents, for instance, don't have the money to pay for that. So I think giving them a couple $100 as sort of something to support them makes sense. But now, of course, just like everything else in the world, we got to look through the prism of race when trying to make an argument around even this topic, like we heard on Melissa Harris Perry's show on MSNBC this weekend.
And I'll tell you what's so disturbing about it to me is that when you dispense with the niceties of it all, when we stop trying to speak in politically correct language, what we're looking at is the organized theft of black wealth.
Cut out there at the end, but it's black wealth is what he says, the organized theft of black wealth. Now, here's the problem with that little argument as it pertains to college basketball. There are currently 4,800 college basketball players out there. 40% of them, like at the University of Wisconsin that we're showing you here, for instance, are white. So that comes to 1,800 college basketball players that aren't black. So when you're going to make this argument that, well, college basketball players should be paid and we're robbing black youth of their wealth, you're kind of leaving out the 40% that aren't black. What did this suddenly become a black-white issue? You want to make the argument that college athletes should be paid? Knock yourself out. I just made it. Yeah, maybe they should. Maybe they shouldn't. Maybe the scholarship's enough. But since when, panel, do we suddenly have to even make this about black and white? Because that guy, that was a racist comment that I just heard right there, just assumes that all basketball players are black, when in college basketball, 40% are indeed not. Adam.
Yeah, that's nonsense. It's not a race issue. You nailed it, and I agree with 100% with what you said. Student athletes should get paid. I think it's abominable that they don't. When you see coaches making between $5 and $10 million in college basketball, same for the football coaches, they're generating tens, even to the hundreds of millions. There's no reason why they shouldn't get some stipend, because they're devoting all their time to playing the
Yeah,
sport.
there are 15 seconds.
Your wife's a white woman, right?
Yes.
So we're talking about women. He's not talking about women. We're talking about white people. It's not just black men who play any of these sports. It's ridiculous.
That's true, Ricky.
Like I said, some people do get through life fat, dumb, and stupid. That was one of the
And Dave
ridiculous
Zirin?
comments.
Yes, that was Dave Zirin, everybody, by the way. He's the
ridiculous
editor of The
comment.
Nation. Find him on Twitter and share your thoughts. Rick, you're up.
Today, the United States Supreme Court refused to hear a case that was challenging the Wisconsin voter ID laws. This has been going on for a couple of years. In the state of Wisconsin, you have to have now a picture ID to go ahead and vote, and there are only certain kind of IDs that are permitted. One of them that is not permitted is a student ID. Now, not shockingly, it turns out that of the 300,000 people who don't have that ID, most of them are senior citizens, economically challenged, or of a minority race. So this has been a big issue. Now, I actually approve of the idea of people having photo ID. In fact, I support a national voter ID card. I support it so long as it doesn't cost anybody anything to get it, because then it's a poll tax. Now in Wisconsin, they say you can get the ID for free if you go to the DMV. The problem is that for many people who don't have a copy of their birth certificate, they have to write a decent little check to get that. 40% of the people who don't have one don't drive a car, and in cities like Milwaukee, where you have a huge minority population, they shut down the DMV a couple years ago that was close to them and moved it 60 miles away. So there are games being played. Wisconsin may end up making the biggest case for why we can't make voter ID work instead of the opposite. If you're gonna make it happen, then you've got to be fair about it and not rig the system.
Yeah, I mean, there are parts of what you say I agree with, but the problem is that when you need an ID to cash a check.
You do.
You need an ID to get into most federal buildings. To make it so that you don't need a picture ID to vote.
But remember, those things you just said are not rights that the Constitution bestows on you.
The Supreme Court in 2008 has decided this issue, and that's why Wisconsin denied it. And they decided it based on the fact that these are things they worry about. Voter fraud and voter confidence are so important that you can risk these things in the alternative.
Well, but you're risking the rights of 300,000 people who may not be able to afford to get the card.
But it's not doesn't cost any money. I mean,
It does cost money to get a birth certificate. It does cost money if
You know
you
what
don't
else
have a
costs
card to
money?
get there.
Advertising, which we have to get you right now. Boy, that was a great transition. That's all the time we have, but it's yay or nay next on the Daily Wrap. This is the Daily Wrap only on Newsmax TV.